took the night shift at the Marathon station off Route 17 because it was the only place that called me back. The interview lasted maybe 10 minutes. The manager barely looked at my resume. He just asked if I could stay awake all night and if I was okay working alone. When I said yes, he nodded and told me to start the following Monday. The station sat in a dead stretch between two small towns in western Pennsylvania. During the day, it blended in with the road. At night, it felt exposed. 6 pumps, a small convenience store, and nothing else around for miles except trees and a narrow access road that disappeared into the dark behind the building. My shift ran from 11 p.m. to 7 a.m. I was alone the entire time. No security guard. No second clerk. Just me, the register, and the cameras. There were 7 cameras total. 4 outside covering the pumps and parking lot. 2 inside. 1 pointed down the back hallway that led to the employee bathroom and the storage room. The system was old and grainy, but it worked well enough that management didn't feel the need to upgrade it. The first 2 weeks were uneventful. Long stretches of nothing broken up by the occasional trucker or late-night commuter. Most nights after 2 a.m., the road went quiet. I spent the time cleaning, restocking, and watching the monitors out of boredom. The first thing that stood out to me was the car. It was a dark-colored sedan. I never got a good look at the make or model. It would pull into the lot sometime between 1:30 and 2 a.m. and park at the farthest pump, the one closest to the tree line. The driver never got out. The engine stayed running. After 10 or 15 minutes, the car would leave. At first, I didn't think much of it. People stop at gas stations for all kinds of reasons. Sometimes they're on the phone. Sometimes they're lost. Sometimes they just need a place to sit for a minute. But it kept happening. Every night. Same time. Same pump. By the 5th night in a row, I started watching the cameras more closely when the car pulled in. I noticed that the headlights never shut off, but the interior light never came on either. Whoever was inside didn't move. One night, around 2:10 a.m., the car stayed longer than usual. Almost half an hour. I remember standing behind the counter, staring at the monitor, feeling uneasy for reasons I couldn't fully explain. The lot was otherwise empty. No other cars. No traffic passing on the road. Finally, the driver's door opened. The interior light still didn't come on. A man stepped out and stood beside the car. He was average height, wearing a dark jacket and jeans. I couldn't see his face clearly because of the distance and the poor lighting, but I could tell he was facing the store. He didn't move. He stood there for several minutes, completely still. Then he got back into the car and drove away. The next night he came inside. It was just after 1:45 a.m. The door chimed and I looked up to see him standing just inside the entrance. Same clothes. Same posture. He didn't look angry or threatening. Just tired. "Hey," I said. He nodded but didn't respond. He walked slowly through the aisles, stopping occasionally to look at items without touching them. When he reached the drink coolers, he stood there for a long time, staring through the glass. Eventually, he brought a bottle of water to the counter. As I rang it up, I noticed his eyes weren't on me or the register. They were fixed on the reflection in the plexiglass behind the counter, where the camera monitors were faintly visible. "You work alone?" he asked. "Yeah," I said. "All night?" "Most nights." He nodded like he was confirming something. "Quiet place," he said. "Usually." He paid in cash, took the bottle, and left. After that, he started coming in more often. Sometimes he bought something small. Sometimes he just walked around and left. He never caused problems. Never raised his voice. Never stayed past closing time because we didn't close. But he watched things. He watched the doors. The cameras. Me. One night, while he stood near the counter, he asked, "You ever check the back hallway camera?" "Sometimes," I said. "You ever notice it skips?" he asked. "I think that's just the system," I said. He smiled faintly. "Everything skips." That was the first time I felt genuinely uncomfortable around him. A few nights later, I noticed movement on the back hallway camera around 3 a.m. I glanced at the monitor, expecting to see nothing. Instead, I saw a shape standing near the storage room door. It looked like a person. I stared at the screen, trying to make sense of what I was seeing. The hallway light was on, but the image was grainy. The shape didn't move. I left the counter and walked down the hallway. The storage room door was closed and locked. The bathroom was empty. When I returned to the counter, the hallway camera showed nothing. I told myself it had been a glitch. The next night it happened again. This time the shape was closer to the camera. standing just inside the frame. I could make out shoulders. A head. I didn't leave the counter. After about 30 seconds, the feed froze. When it came back, the hallway was empty. The man came in later that night. "You saw it again?" he said casually. My stomach dropped. "Saw what?" He looked at me for a moment, then smiled. "Never mind." I started writing things down after that. Times. Camera glitches. The man's visits. Things escalated quickly. The hallway camera began showing movement alerts even when nothing was there. The back door alarm chimed once, softly, then reset itself. When I checked the door, it was locked. One night, around 4:20 a.m., the cameras went out completely. All 7 feeds went black at once. The store lights stayed on. I stood behind the counter, listening to the hum of the refrigerators and the soft buzz of the fluorescent lights. Outside, the lot was dark. I heard footsteps. They came from the back hallway. Slow. Deliberate. They stopped just behind the counter. A voice spoke close to my ear. "You don't watch the right angles." I didn't turn around. When the cameras came back on, the store was empty. The man never came back after that night. Neither did I. I quit the next morning without giving notice. A few weeks later, I drove past the station during the day. It was closed. Police tape across the doors. I looked it up online. A night clerk had disappeared during his shift. The cameras showed him working behind the counter. At 3:17 a.m., the footage skipped forward. At 3:19, the store was empty. The back hallway camera showed nothing unusual. They said there were no signs of a struggle. I know better. Some places don't need to force you to leave. They just wait for you to stop being fully visible. I took the overnight shift at a small speedway station outside Columbus, Ohio, after my usual job fell through. The listing promised quiet nights and low traffic. The manager assured me it would be safe, just me and the hum of the refrigerators. I needed the money, so I didn't ask too many questions. The station was isolated, sitting on a corner of a long road with no houses or businesses nearby. At night, it felt like the world ended a few hundred feet past the pumps. There were 6 in total, 1 small convenience store, and a narrow access road disappearing into the trees behind the building. The place looked normal during the day, but at night it felt suspended, as though time slowed when you entered the lot. My shift ran from 11 p.m. to 7 a.m. I was alone the entire time. The cameras were old, grainy and lagging, but they covered all the entrances, the parking lot, and the hallway leading to the employee bathroom and storage room. One feed was supposed to cover the rear lot, but the angle was poor, and the motion alerts rarely worked properly. The first couple of weeks were boring. The occasional trucker, maybe a couple of students stopping in for snacks, and the long stretches of quiet that I grew used to. Around 2:30 a.m., the road outside would become completely silent, leaving the parking lot empty except for me and the pumps. That's when the first thing happened that made me uneasy. It was a dark blue SUV, older model, maybe late 1990s. It would pull into the lot sometime between 2 o'clock and 2:30 a.m., park at the farthest pump, and just sit there. Engine off, lights off, no movement inside. At first, I thought the driver was sleeping, but the way the vehicle lined up perfectly with the camera's blind spot didn't feel accidental. Sometimes I would check for occupants, but I could never see anyone clearly. After 15 to 20 minutes, the SUV would leave without the engine ever turning back on. It became a nightly ritual. Every night around the same time, same vehicle, same spot. Sometimes it didn't show at all, but more often than not, it appeared like clockwork. I started feeling watched even when I wasn't looking at the monitors. That first week, I told myself it was paranoia. Just a person passing through, I thought. Then one night the SUV stayed. Longer than usual. I noticed it because the lot was empty, and the stillness of the vehicle made the air in the store feel thicker. Around 3 a.m., the driver's side door opened slowly. No one got out. I rewound the footage. There was no frame showing the door opening. 1 second it was closed, the next open. I couldn't make sense of it. A week later, the driver stepped out. A man, tall, thin, wearing a dark jacket and jeans, cap pulled low. He didn't walk around. He didn't go to the pumps. He just stood beside the SUV, looking at the rear exit of the store. My stomach tightened. I hadn't seen him enter from the front. The door chime hadn't sounded. He was outside the building, standing still for nearly 10 minutes, staring at the rear door as if waiting for it to open. Then, without moving, he returned to the driver's side and got back in. The SUV left. The following night, the SUV parked closer, near the front door, partially under a camera's view. I couldn't see the driver, but the shape was unmistakable. The front door didn't chime when he supposedly entered, and the camera showed no movement. Yet, I felt the hairs on the back of my neck rise. Around 3:30 a.m., the rear hallway motion alert went off. I checked the feed. Empty. I walked the hallway, flashlight in hand. Bathroom empty. Storage room locked. No sign of anyone. The SUV stayed consistent for several nights. The man sometimes stepped out. Sometimes he didn't. The hallway alerts began triggering without cause. Cameras would freeze for a second at a time. The grainy feed showed shadows where there should have been nothing. I started bringing a small knife with me, tucked into my pocket. Not for defense, I didn't believe it would help, but for reassurance. One night, I heard the phone ring. The store's landline. I hadn't seen it used at night. I picked it up. No dial tone. Then a voice, low, calm. "You're in the wrong place." I froze. The line went dead. The call log showed nothing. The SUV was parked outside. I didn't leave the counter. My hands shook for the rest of the shift. 2 nights later, the SUV pulled in directly in front of the rear door. Engine off. Lights off. I watched the feed. The man stepped out. He walked along the side of the vehicle, his hand trailing along the metal. He stopped at the back, facing the door. I didn't breathe. 10 minutes passed. Then he raised his head, looked directly into the camera. I saw his mouth move, but no sound reached me. The hallway alarm chimed. I didn't move. The man was in the hallway feed for a single frozen second, then gone. I quit the next morning. Didn't call the manager. Didn't explain why. Just walked out, locked the doors behind me. Weeks later, I saw a report about a night clerk who vanished at a station along the same highway. Security footage showed him working behind the counter. At 3:44 a.m., the video skipped. At 3:46 a.m., the store was empty. The back door alarm logged open and closed at the same second. They ruled no foul play. I don't drive that road anymore. Sometimes I wake up in the middle of the night, imagining that SUV pulling into a lot somewhere, engine off, lights out, waiting for the right second when no one is fully visible, waiting to see if someone notices. I worked the overnight shift at a small Circle K in rural Illinois for just over 3 months. I didn't plan on staying that long. The job was supposed to be temporary until a warehouse position opened. The manager was in a hurry when he hired me. "You work nights, right? You can stay awake? Alone?" I said yes because I had no other options, and by the time I started, I realized I'd committed to months of quiet, lonely hours. The station sat on a stretch of road that didn't really go anywhere. On either side were fields, a few abandoned buildings, and a line of woods in the distance. During the day, it blended into the landscape. At night, it felt completely cut off. The fluorescent lights on the pumps threw long, sharp shadows across the asphalt, and the darkness beyond made the station seem like a small island of light in a vast black ocean. My shift ran from 11 p.m. to 7 a.m., and I worked entirely alone. The store itself was small. 2 doors led to the pumps. One door I kept locked after midnight. The other I monitored from the register. There was a narrow hallway that led to the bathroom and the storage room. A few cameras were scattered throughout the building. One covering the counter, 2 the aisles, 1 down the hallway. There was a small outdoor feed for the lot, though the angle left a lot of the area behind the building in darkness. The first week was quiet. Truckers. Occasional late-night commuters. I read and cleaned when no one came in. Between 2 o'clock and 4 a.m., the lot was usually empty, and the silence felt absolute. That's when I noticed it. A dark gray sedan began appearing regularly, always after 2:30 a.m., always parked near the far pump on the edge of the lot. At first, I assumed it was someone waiting for a friend or a call. But the vehicle never moved during its stay, the driver never exited, and the interior lights never came on. Sometimes the engine ran. Sometimes it didn't. Then, after a variable amount of time, the car would drive away as quietly as it arrived. It started happening every night. Sometimes earlier, sometimes later. Always the same pattern. It didn't matter if I was watching the cameras or not. The car just appeared, and I began feeling an unease that I couldn't place. After a couple of weeks, I saw the driver step out. A man mid-30s, thin, dark jacket and jeans, a baseball cap pulled low. He didn't come inside. He walked around the car slowly, then stopped near the rear door of the building, standing still for almost 10 minutes, staring at the door as if waiting for something. Then he returned to the car and drove away. I told myself I was overthinking it. People did strange things at night. Still, I couldn't shake the feeling that he wasn't just idling. He was observing, watching patterns, waiting. Soon he began coming inside. Not every night, but often enough that I noticed. He would walk through the store silently, looking at shelves without touching anything, standing at the drink coolers for long periods. One night, he approached the counter, placed a bottle of water down, and asked in a calm, flat voice, "You work alone here every night?" "Yes," I said. He nodded and said nothing for a long moment, staring at the reflection of the monitors in the plexiglass. I felt the first real jolt of fear that night. Not for him exactly, but for the knowledge that someone could be standing there, silent and observing, and I would only know because I happened to notice. After that night, I started paying attention to the cameras constantly. The hallway camera began giving me trouble. Frames dropped, delayed by fractions of a second, skipped forward at odd intervals. I'd see a shadow where nothing should have been. I chalked it up to an old system, but each time the feed lagged or flickered, I felt watched. Then the first incident with the rear door happened. The rear exit was steel, alarmed, and always locked. One night, around 4:15 a.m., the notification beeped softly. Rear door open. I froze, checked the camera. Door closed. Locked. I walked the hallway, flashlight in hand. Bathroom empty. Storage room locked. No one. The alarm log, however, showed continuous activity for 6 minutes. I started carrying a small pocket knife, more for reassurance than protection. I slept little. Nights stretched endlessly. The man's visits became regular. Sometimes he was outside by the car. Sometimes inside, though I never heard him enter. Sometimes both. The hallway camera caught flashes of him, though when I looked away there was nothing. When I rewound the footage, those seconds were missing entirely. One night the phone rang. The store's landline at 4:22 a.m. I hadn't seen it used at night. I picked it up. Silence. Then a voice, low and calm, "You're standing in the wrong place." My stomach dropped. The line went dead. No record of an incoming call. The sedan was parked outside, engine off, lights out. I didn't leave the counter for the rest of the shift. A week later, the SUV, or it might have been the same man driving another vehicle, parked directly in front of the rear door. Engine off. Lights off. He stepped out, walked along the side, hand tracing the metal, stopping at the rear to face the door. I held my breath. Minutes passed. He raised his head and looked directly at the camera. I could see his mouth move, though I heard nothing. The hallway alarm chimed. I didn't move. He appeared for one frozen second on the feed, then was gone. I quit the next morning. Didn't call the manager, didn't explain. Just locked the doors behind me and left. Weeks later, a report surfaced. A night clerk at a station along the same highway had vanished. Security footage showed him working behind the counter. At 3:44 a.m., the video skipped. At 3:46 a.m., the store was empty. The rear door alarm logged open and closed at the same second. No evidence of foul play. I don't work nights anymore. Sometimes when I wake too early or too late, I imagine that car pulling into some dark lot, engine off, lights out, waiting for the perfect moment when no one is fully visible, waiting to see if someone notices. I picked up the night shift at a 7-Eleven outside Louisville, Kentucky, because it was the only option available at the time. I had moved back home after college and needed something steady. The manager, a thin, anxious man named Curtis, told me it would be easy work. "You're alone most nights, but the cameras cover everything," he said. "Don't worry about it." I nodded, desperate, and started the following Monday. The station sat on a side road that connected a handful of warehouses and industrial lots to the main highway. Beyond the lot, trees and fields stretched for miles. At night, it felt like the station was floating in a void of darkness. Fluorescent lights over the pumps cast sharp shadows across the asphalt, the kind that made the edges of the lot disappear into blackness. My shift ran from 11 p.m. to 7 a.m. I worked alone. The store was small. 2 entrances, but I locked one after midnight and directed all customers through the other. A narrow hallway led to the bathroom and storage room. There were 7 cameras total, 3 outside, 3 inside, and 1 covering the hallway. The outdoor feeds were grainy and had blind spots behind the building. The first week was uneventful. Truckers, late-night drivers stopping for coffee or snacks. Long stretches of silence, broken only by the hum of refrigerators and soda machines. Between 2 o'clock and 4 a.m., the lot was completely empty. That's when I first noticed the SUV. It was an old, dark green extended cab. It would pull into the lot around 2:30 a.m., park at the farthest pump, engine off, lights off, and sit for 10 to 20 minutes before leaving quietly. At first, I thought it was just someone taking a break. But the pattern became too precise. Every night, around the same time, same spot. After a week, I saw the driver step out. Mid-30s, thin, dark jacket and jeans, cap pulled low. He didn't come inside. He walked slowly around the vehicle, stopped at the rear of the building, standing there for 10 minutes, staring at the rear door as though waiting for it to open. Then he returned to the cab and drove away. I told myself it was a coincidence. People did strange things at night. But then he started showing up inside the store. Not every night, but often enough to notice. He wandered the aisles silently, sometimes stopping to stare at drinks or snacks without touching anything. One night, he approached the counter, placed a bottle of water down, and asked flatly, "You work alone here every night?" "Yes," I said. He nodded, staring at the monitors in the plexiglass. That was when I realized it wasn't about the store. He was watching me, waiting for a reaction. After that night, I monitored the cameras constantly. The hallway camera began skipping frames. Shadows appeared where nothing should have been. The feed would freeze for a second, then resume with things moved or missing. I told myself it was just the old system, but each flicker made me feel more observed. Then the rear door alarm went off. Steel door locked, alarmed. At 4:10 a.m., the soft beep. Rear door open. I froze. Checked the feed. Door closed. Locked. I walked the hallway, flashlight in hand. Bathroom empty. Storage room locked. Alarm log showed 6 minutes of continuous activity. I began carrying a small pocket knife. Not to use, but as reassurance. Nights became unbearable. The man's visits were predictable. Sometimes outside, sometimes inside, sometimes both. I never saw him enter. Occasionally, I glimpsed a reflection in a monitor or window for a second. Then it vanished. Rewinding footage, the seconds were missing. One night, the store phone rang. The landline at 4:22 a.m. I hadn't seen it used. I answered. Silence. Then a voice, calm, "You're standing in the wrong place." I froze. The line went dead. No record of a call. Outside, the SUV sat quietly, engine off, lights out. I didn't move the rest of the shift. A week later, the vehicle parked directly in front of the rear door. Engine off. Lights off. The man stepped out. Walked along the side, hand brushing metal, stopping at the back to face the door. Minutes passed. He raised his head and looked at the camera. I saw his mouth move. No sound. The hallway alarm chimed. He appeared for one frozen second, then vanished. I quit the next morning. Didn't tell the manager why. Just locked the doors behind me. Weeks later, a report surfaced. A night clerk along the same highway had vanished. Security footage showed him working behind the counter. At 3:44 a.m., the video skipped. At 3:46 a.m., the store was empty. The rear door alarm logged open and closed at the same second. No signs of foul play. I never returned to night shifts. Sometimes, when awake too early or too late, I imagine that SUV pulling into some dark lot, engine off, lights out, waiting for the perfect moment when no one is fully visible, waiting to see if someone notices. I took the night shift at a 24-hour BP station outside Nashville, Tennessee, because the pay was decent and I needed something steady. The posting promised quiet nights and minimal traffic. The manager, a thin man named Harris, said I would be alone most nights and that the cameras were enough to keep me safe. I didn't question it at the time. The station sat on a stretch of highway that barely connected anything. To the east, a few small homes scattered among thick woods. To the west, empty fields fading into darkness. At night, the place felt like it was floating in the middle of nothing, illuminated only by the harsh white lights over the pumps. 6 pumps. A small store. A narrow access road running behind the building into the trees. That road, I later realized, was easy to lose sight of after dark. My shift ran from 11 p.m. to 7 a.m. I worked entirely alone. The store had 2 entrances. I locked one after midnight and directed all customers to the other. A short hallway led to the employee bathroom and storage room. There were 7 cameras in total, 3 outside, 3 inside, and 1 covering the hallway. The outdoor feeds were grainy and had blind spots, especially behind the building. I didn't notice how important that would become until later. The first week passed without incident. Truckers, late-night commuters, the occasional college student stopping for snacks. Most nights, after 2 a.m., the road outside would be silent. The lot would be empty. The hum of the refrigerators and soda machines was all I heard. Then the truck appeared. It was a dark green pickup, old, extended cab. It would arrive between 2:30 and 3 a.m., always parking at the far pump near the edge of the lot. The engine would turn off. The lights would go out. No movement inside. Then, after 15 to 20 minutes, it would leave quietly. At first, I assumed it was just someone taking a break. But it kept happening every night. Always the same pattern. Sometimes it didn't show. More often than not, it appeared like clockwork. I began feeling uneasy even when I wasn't watching the monitors. After 2 weeks, I saw the driver step out. A man, tall, thin, dark jacket and jeans, cap pulled low. He didn't come inside. He walked around the truck, then stopped near the rear door of the station. He stood there for nearly 10 minutes, facing the building as though waiting for it to open. Then he returned to the cab and drove away. I told myself I was imagining it. People did strange things at night. Still, it unsettled me. The man's visits became regular. Sometimes he was outside. Sometimes inside, though I never heard him enter. Sometimes both. He walked slowly, deliberately, through the aisles without touching anything. One night, he approached the counter, placed a bottle of water down, and asked flatly, "You work alone every night?" "Yes," I said. He nodded, staring at the monitors in the plexiglass. I felt my first real fear. Not because he was threatening, but because he was observing, and I only knew because I happened to notice. After that night, I watched the cameras constantly. The hallway camera began skipping frames. Shadows appeared where nothing should be. I chalked it up to the old system, but each flicker made me feel watched. Then the rear door alarm went off. The door was steel, locked, alarmed. Around 4:15 a.m., the notification beeped. Rear door open. I froze. Checked the feed. Door closed. Locked. I walked the hallway, flashlight in hand. Bathroom empty. Storage room locked. No one. The alarm log showed 6 minutes of continuous activity. I started carrying a pocket knife. Not because I thought it would help, but because it made me feel less vulnerable. One night the phone rang. The landline. I hadn't seen it used at night. I picked it up. Silence. Then a voice, low, calm, "You're standing in the wrong place." I froze. The line went dead. No record of a call. The truck was outside, engine off, lights out. I didn't leave the counter for the rest of the shift. A week later, the truck parked directly in front of the rear door. Engine off. Lights off. The man stepped out, walked along the side, hand brushing the metal, stopped at the back to face the door. Minutes passed. He raised his head and looked directly at the camera. I could see his mouth move. No sound. The hallway alarm chimed. He appeared for one frozen second on the feed, then was gone. I quit the next morning. Didn't call the manager. Didn't explain. Just locked the doors behind me. Weeks later, a report surfaced. A night clerk along the same highway vanished. Security footage showed him working behind the counter. At 3:44 a.m., the video skipped. At 3:46 a.m., the store was empty. The rear door alarm logged open and closed at the same second. No evidence of foul play. I never returned to nights. Sometimes when I wake too early or too late, I imagine that truck pulling into some dark lot, engine off, lights out, waiting for the perfect moment when no one is fully visible, waiting to see if someone notices.